Hi there, welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm medium Kellee White.
And I'm Dr. Shirley.
Today we have a very, very special guest. We're thrilled to have you today. We have Dannion Brinkley. Dannion is a near-death survivor and author of the international bestseller Saved by the Light, as well as its companion, At Peace in the Light, several other books, and his latest, 10 Things to Know Before You Go. Dannion and his wife, Catherine, are co-founders of Twilight Brigade. This is an international organization which places volunteers with the goal of providing companionship in the last months of life. He lectures at universities and forums worldwide and lives in South Carolina. Welcome to our show.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be among such distinguished personalities.
Oh, why, thank you, sir. We are so excited to have you because, I mean, there's so many questions that I'd like to ask about just your experiences, and maybe you can just give a very brief overview of what a
near-death experience
right,
is.
yeah, and what that was for you.
Don't know.
Well, having one is a lot of fun. Getting to the place where you're going to have it is usually not. I was struck by lightning and was dead for 28 minutes and completely paralyzed for 6 days, partially paralyzed for 7 months. It took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself.
Wow.
And I had what is now known as a near-death experience. Because of this, it didn't have a name when it happened to me. Dr. Raymond Moody had not written his landmark book, Life After Life. So I had an experience in the middle of South Carolina, and in 1975, whether you know it or not, everybody goes to hell from South Carolina. And everybody has to have a personal relationship with this guy named G. Okay, so, you know, I have this experience. I grew up as a prick, tough guy. You know, football, sports, fist fighting, Marine Corps. Worked contract for several three-letter agencies. And I didn't care about any of this. And religion, that's the stupidest crap I ever heard. Think about religion. I'm guilty of a sin. Okay, when I was a kid, I think I was in the 9th or 10th grade, and I knocked out the biology teacher. Because he left the room and there was a girl I was hitting on, and you know what it's like when you get that age, the sap is definitely rising. So I'm over talking 90 miles an hour, you know, thinking all those thoughts, and he comes in and grabs me by the ear. But he doesn't realize that I'm left-handed instead of right-handed, so I caught him with an overhand left that he hit him so hard in the face, he hit his head and slid down the wall, and he was unconscious.
Wow.
So instead of putting me in jail or reform school, they decided to send me to the Fundamentalist Baptist Royal Ambassadors weekend for wayward guys.
Wow.
So I'm guilty of knocking out the biology teacher. I'm sitting here listening to these people. They tell me the world's 6,000 years old, okay? 6,000 years old, and that's all it is. Except they got dinosaur bones that's 160 million in the Neo-Paleolithic period. Okay, so I asked the guy, I said, well, where do all these dinosaur bones come from? He said, it's the work of the devil.
Are you kidding? That's what they said?
South Carolina, man.
I've never been
And
to the
I
South.
started laughing, and then they started telling me what I was really guilty of, the original sin. I'm listening to original sin. Now think of this. I'm hayseed, country boy. And they start telling me this story about a woman talking to a snake. Okay, it's Adam and Eve story. And I'm listening to this, and I said, wait a minute. First thing I wanted to know is if a woman saw a snake, how long would she stay around? Okay? And the second thing is, if that woman saw a snake, and that snake started talking to her, I don't know how long she's going to stay after that. But I was hoping she was looking for a cage. Because, you know, you're going to have a really good show around town, stop and see the talking snake. And then they decide what I'm guilty of, what the original sin was. And the original sin was the snake talked Eve into getting Adam to eat an apple so he could realize he was naked.
It's like a stand-up show.
But what's
It doesn't make sense, does it?
Why? I said, wait a minute. I thought I was here because I knocked out the biology teacher. I didn't know I was guilty of something that happened in the desert 6,000 years ago. I didn't have no orgasm. I didn't see the video. You know, there was no pictures, and so
my
you
God.
have, you know, you're 13 or 14 years old. That's all you think about anyway.
God, that's hilarious.
That's all I was thinking about.
Right.
And so I lived my life in that consciousness. I just put all that aside, and you know, you was crazy, and I became an expert in destroying things. I mean, my skill set was to destroy it.
Wow.
You know, what's your job description? To give you the maximum opportunity to die for whatever you believed in. That was my chosen profession, because once it was my responsibility, I was going to get you. So I lived in that mindset till like 1975, and then I'm hit in the head by a bolt of lightning. It goes down my spine, welds the nails of the heels of my shoes to the floor. It throws me in the air, suspends me here, slams me back down on the bed.
Wow.
I'm burning and I'm on fire and I'm completely paralyzed and I cannot move. The ball of fire that came through the room burnt my eyes so bad I couldn't see. And I couldn't get to a safe position. You know, you find a corner. When you're hurt or explosion, you're taught in the military, Marine Corps, you find a corner to protect yourself so you can angle and defend, because I had no weapons. I was limited in my movement, which was paralyzed, and I couldn't see. So all of a sudden, I lift out of my body. The first thing I noticed, there was no pain. The second thing I noticed was I could see. When I came back into my body after 28 minutes, I couldn't see. But while I was out, I could see.
That's interesting.
And I watched all the stuff that was going around, but I watched it like it didn't mean anything. You know, it's like watching a TV show that you're only half interested in. It's like one of those girl chicks my wife makes me watch. You know, you don't love me if you don't sit here and watch this stupid. And you disassociate. Once you leave your body, you just completely disassociate. And you take on back your spiritual identity. A great, powerful, and mighty spiritual identity with dignity, direction, and purpose. And you begin to observe the world. And what happens is you move through a tunnel or move into a place where light, brilliant light. But what is the single most important thing about the near-death experience that people can grasp, because now it's a part of mainstream? We're not woo-woo. We're a part of the national conversation.
So glad to hear you say that.
There's nowhere anybody can go. We're part of the national conversation. They teach about it in nursing school. And I was there in the very first days. The hospital they took me to, where the admission slip said patient unconscious, patient not breathing, no EKG. But it was Dr. Raymond Moody, who was a medical student at that university. So in the beginning of this movement, I became fast friends. And I watched it and I looked at it, and without Raymond, I don't think I would have made it. Wow. No redneck can understand the dynamics of the other world with no mindset. So my approach has never been religious. You know, God, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, Muhammad, they had all these names for this person on the other side.
Do you feel that, Dr. Moody, the two of you had a contract to do this work, to help you?
Well, he saved my life. I mean, he asked the right questions.
But he happened to be there.
Yeah, I mean,
You mean from the other side?
No,
That
I
there was
mean
a
in
contract.
South Carolina.
Yeah,
Or where you
Georgia.
were. Georgia.
Yeah, but he was from Porterdale. I mean, just a bunch of little rednecks, you know. And and you mean contract before we came here?
Yeah.
Oh, there's no question about that. I mean, I don't know why in the world I like to kill myself every 10 to 15 years, other than I just probably basically just get bored.
That sounds like the little bit I've known you now. That sounds like something you want to do.
Archangel Michael and Gabriel, they go down to the cloud bar and they get them 2 or 3 angel shots in them, and they say, listen, I got an idea. Let's just go kill Dannion. See what he's doing.
That's hilarious.
See if he can get up from this one. Ta-da, like people say, Dannion, it's amazing. You've been dead 3 times. I said, not near amazing as I've been alive 4.
Wow, that is so true. Wow.
So my nature of the near-death experience is easy. Nobody dies, and nobody goes to hell. Why? If anybody was supposed to go to hell, it would have been me.
Wow.
So if I didn't go, none of you suckers got a chance. And none of you watching this show have a chance. So you got to get over that you're going to die, which means forever gets a lot longer. And then you got to remember, you're not going to hell. So that means you truly search for the meaning of life. So when I explored this level of consciousness, and I watched the unfoldment of it where it's now part of mainstream, and I go back to the early days, you know, when people were talking and they were arguing and scientists were looking at it and people were having this experience, and Raymond created a book where people would look at it and pay attention, but I was right there. You know, and I was the translator. People would try to find language to describe their experience. And I had that nature, you could tell it to me, and I could come back with Raymond and it was Raymond and Ken Ring and Bruce Grayson and Michael Sabom and Ian Stevenson, all these George Ritchie, all these early names in the game. And their clients or patients would tell them stuff, and then they'd call me, because I can translate it into hillbilly. And then I would tell them, I said, okay, this is what I think this was. Go back and ask them. And where the rep came was, I could understand it and explain it to where finding the language that a person could use to describe the system and structure of the events. And that's just became, because I didn't have a place like most people who had the experience had. Most people were afraid that people would think they were crazy.
Right, yeah.
And most people believed that people would think that there's no such thing. And doctors and scientists and everybody's in, Amazing Randy, everybody's in the game.
Right.
Okay? Well, I didn't give a damn if anybody thought I had a near-death experience. I thought they were stupid, because look, man, it took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. You think I was faking that?
Right.
Okay, I had no idea, didn't have a name, and I saw a system by which we leave this world and the structure that when we first engage it. The first near-death experience, I went deeper into it. I went through 4 levels of consciousness and realized there was probably 7, 3 more I could see, but I couldn't enter them. And I began to realize how multidimensional we are and how powerfully skilled we are, and then you start to search for the meaning. But I never had a thought about what anybody thought what I was telling them was true or not.
That's what I loved about your book.
Yeah.
I didn't have a near-death experience. I had a traumatic brain injury. And as a result of that, I was knocked out of my body, and I had a different consciousness. Suddenly I could see dead people everywhere I went, being still in my body. And when I read your book, I was so, even to this day, so blown away and so happy and so thrilled that you actually talked about, you were so authentic about saying over and over, you would say to people, oh, this is what happened, over and over and over, and you didn't give a damn what anybody thought. That was so important for me to hear. So thank you for that.
Yeah, because look, I didn't have anything to gain.
Right.
Except that this is where the point was. When I wrote that book, and this is the nature, I went to see Raymond after the open heart surgery. This was my second near-death experience, and I went to a different plane. The system is the same, because this all has a punchline. The system is the same, but everything was an evolution. They figured they'd give me all I could handle once, and then we'd do it again, and then we'd do it again. Okay, because they could give me as much. Because remember, being struck by lightning under the United States law is an act of God. Right. Okay, so that's my electrical self. Then my heart. Then I had open heart surgery, and then I had brain surgery, mental, physical, and spiritual.
Wow.
Each of those layers that happened over the period of time is well structured. Okay, I can look and see that. All right, so when you start to look at how these levels work and that they're real, then I'm an obsessive compulsive, dead or alive. You know, I'm nosy. I'm going to pay attention. And just because you think you killed me and I'm still here and I haven't seen the devil yet, then I'm going to entertain myself. All obsessive compulsive people entertain themselves. So if it was heaven, I was going to entertain myself, and if it was hell, I was going to entertain myself. All right, so the key came that I went to see Raymond. It's like 91. And Raymond was beaten. The world, he'd never had a near-death experience. But he's a brilliant philosopher and brilliant and one of the funniest human beings on the earth, but he wasn't laughing. The electricity was turned off at his house, the gas was off, and he was sitting in his house with a blanket on him, and I took one look at it and I thought about it, and I could see how depressed he was. So I went and cut on the electricity, turned the water on, and took him to the Red Lobster. And come on, Raymond. And I realized that when we would sit and talk, that what he thought would just be a phenomenon, something that would open up a conversation of things that he had seen and people had talked to him about, and that his professor in psychiatry school, Dr. George Ritchie, had talked about it, and he had a couple of people being resuscitated while he was going through becoming the internship. And that's all Raymond thought. Well, the world attacked him. So I started reading Raymond's letters. The people had sent him, it's like 1,500. And these are from truck drivers to doctors to little nurses and everything. And so I sat there and I said, you know, everybody's so happy they have somebody to tell their story to. So I decided I was going to defend those people's rights. You had a story to tell. I was going to create a platform that I believed in the near-death experience. Why? Because I had it. And I was going to defend those people. So if I used to tell people, if someone starts with you, tell them to come talk to me. You know, let them come talk to me. And I'll defend your rights. So I wrote Saved by the Light, and I put chapter 5 in there, which were the boxes of knowledge, which became the prophecies. And if you go read a book I wrote 21 years ago based on stuff I said 40 years ago, even if I wasn't in heaven, I still saw the future or the probable possibilities of the events that are occurring today.
Yeah.
So each of the experiences, no one's going to die. The moment you get over that as a concept, you get back half of who you are. The next thing is if you learn that you're not going to die, then all that sin and guilt and all that stuff and all that crap comes into a play. Think about this. Who are you? You're the happy combination of everything that you think someone you like wants you to be. You are a combination of, you look around and who you're trying to please and who you want people that you want to like you. You have become a psychological, sociological nature of them as adaptation. So you don't even know who you are anyway.
That's so true.
Okay? So I got a chance to see who I was.
Right.
And I was a prick, tough guy. But here's the key to all near-death experiences. What is the meaning of life? Okay, this is where people come. First, is Mama okay? Well, Mama's in heaven, you lunatic. How could she not be okay? Yeah. And why are you asking that? Because you're mad she abandoned you. Okay? That's where abandonment and selfishness comes into play, no matter what you think of you first. So no problem. But you're going to lift out of your body and you're going to go down a tunnel. You're going to come to a place of bright, brilliant, beautiful light. And then you're going to be met by a being which is really you. That means you never left heaven. And if you look at it, you're more conscious here than physically here. And people say, Dannion, how can that be? How can I be more conscious here than physical here? Because look, like very easy, crazy. Think about it. Your body's made up of atoms, molecules, and cells. Okay, so that makes you here. Well, if you look at an atom under an electron microscope, it's 94.6% empty space. If you look at a molecule under an electron microscope, it's 98% empty space. And if you look at a cell under an electron microscope, it's 99% empty space. So if you took all the space out of every atom, every molecule, and every cell of everybody's body in America, and let's say there's 320 million people here, all of us would fit in a regular-sized matchbox. That's science.
Wow.
That's a fact. So most of you aren't really here anyway. Okay, so you're more consciousness than physical. And then people say, well, let's look at the physical body. Well, what is the physical body? It's a water treatment plant. It's a big bag of water.
I love this. I do.
See, my sense of humor.
It's just great.
It makes so much sense. And you're
You tell your
completely
patients they're a big bag of
satisfied.
water.
left brain.
76%.
Yeah.
You put water in with a few little nutrients and it comes out, as long as you keep drinking that water.
Yeah.
Or you get constipation, one of the two, whichever one you want. Okay? Doesn't matter to me. This is what happens. So once you realize all of that and you put that as a framework of who you are physically, then you go back to who you are spiritually. Mm-hmm. The near-death experience came into existence for this reason, as we identify it today. God, she got sick and tired, and I always think God's a female. Okay? Yeah. I think it happened when I was about 14. I realized there was nothing on the earth was cooler than a woman. Okay? And, you know, this is the nature of it. So when you start to look at this, God looked down, she's hanging out, you know, she had a banana split, and she's looking around, and here she is sending a few of hers back. We have to live in one of two worlds. We have to live in the dead universe, which is science and chemistry, okay? Because first we had Newtonian mechanics. Now we have chemical mechanics, and God is the doctor because they invented penicillin. So we live in a chemical consciousness. So when you look at these three things, when you look at the chemical, the physiological, and the chemical, okay, as our base reality, you're not focusing on your spirituality. This is what happened. So when she looked down, she says, well, wait a minute. I'm sick and tired of those pill-pushing, antibiotics, SOBs, and anxiety-making pills for my people because they're a little depressed, because the world teaches them that they're sinners, they're depressed, and they are dysfunctional, and they need to take these 10 drugs because that's a dead universe. So in a living universe, here's what she did. She started sending more of us back. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation, new drug therapies, new techniques, things that you can do. You know, when I got struck by lightning and was dead, if you didn't have oxygen to your brain for 5 minutes, you were dead. Well, that explains part of my problem. Okay? And now you can resuscitate someone up to 3 hours. So look what she did.
Wow.
Whose fault is it that I'm back? Doctor's fault. The ones who don't believe there's anything next. Now that's God's sense of humor. Wow. How in the world, since you brought me back, you jackass, and I'm telling you I had a near-death experience, and you brought me back, and you probably have 50 more that you brought back that's told you the same thing, and you still have trying to convince me that I'm just a bunch of chemicals.
Right. Wow.
Well, wait a minute. You need help, sucker.
That's so true.
You need help. So it gets down to what's the meaning of life. From 3 near-death experiences. And you come to this life because you were chosen. And you earn the right to choose. Because somewhere in some vast cosmic dimensional reality, you had gained a certain skill as you're evolving and spiritually. It's the only way you get into the physical world. There's no way you take on the 8 bodies that consist of the physical world. It's not mental, physical, and spiritual. There are 8 bodies like chakras. There's 8 of those babies. And you line those bodies up to create this physical body, and your air, your breathing is the string that takes each of those pearls and holds them together. And as long as that stream of air is moving in and out, all 8 bodies, as soon as you quit, your spiritual, divine, ethereal stuff lets all that crap go. That's like ashes to ashes and dust to dust. It lets all that crap go. And then it's just back to you. But you've learned some great, magnificent skill. And you come to this earth life to practice. And what are you practicing? Co-creation. You come here to take something you've learned, and whoever really knows what it is, that's why you try everything. You be nice, you be loving, you be kind, you be supportive, you be stern. Because in it you're going to find that joy of ecstasy and reward. You're going to feel good about something that you did that impressed, that someone appreciated or someone admired or someone was inspired. Or you're going to be appreciated by something, you're going to appreciate something, you're going to admire something, and something's going to be inspirational to you. And by using those key factors comes application. And in application, you have reached the skill set to exercise that point. And I'll do this quick. I always tell a joke, and because I'm funny, and what are they going to do, kill me? Here's my answer to that. I'll be back. Arnold Schwarzenegger ain't got nothing on me.
He sure doesn't.
All right, so
He sure doesn't.
so when you look at it, you realize that it is an honor to be alive. To breathe is an unbelievable gift. And think about if you lived on this earth and it was not autotomic. If you had to think about each breath.
Yeah.
But that's you holding those 8 bodies.
Wow.
That's the string that holds the pearls around it, keeps it together. So when you start to really look at it, you come here to be a co-creator. We all want to be, if we're all children of God, then who do we want to be like? Our parents. So my joke, you're coming out of the angel bar. You had 4 or 5 cloud shots. So when you come floating out, you're listing a little bit to the right. And so God comes up and she puts her arm around and she says, "Hey, Kel, what's happening?" "Everything's great, God." She says, "Well, let me ask you a question. How'd you like to be me for a couple of days?" "Whoa, yeah, I saw Bruce Almighty. Yeah, I'd like to be you for a couple of days. Yeah." She says, "You sure?" "Yeah." She said, "Well, what would you do if you were me for a couple of days?" "Well, I'd be everything you are, God. I'd be loving and protective and caring and honest and supporting and believing and giving people faith and performing miracles." She says, "Well, you sure?" You say, "Yeah." Well, you know what happens next? You're born. And you get a chance to be everything, like you said, if Raymond and I made a choice, you get a chance to be everything you just defined God as. And if you define God today, right now in your life, and who that divine force is, or divine presence, and you find one thing that you don't have the opportunity to do right now, even down to Lazarus and to Jesus. Hey, they got up once, I got up 3 times, so I know it's all possible.
Wow. That's what a message. I mean, that's
Southern style.
the Southern style. Southern chicken
Let's hear a little bit about hillbilly heaven.
So I mean, that's mind blowing, and shifts the perspective completely.
And it frames it.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got to listen to all that stuff. I don't care what it's good for.
Yeah.
Okay, I already been through it. There's nothing about it. I've experienced all the pain, anxiety, depression, learning to walk and feed myself. And then I got struck by lightning again because I wasn't paying enough attention. They said, "Oh yeah, we got to go kill him again."
Wow.
And listen how funny it is. Talking on a telephone, 2 different bedrooms, 2 different houses, 13 miles apart. All right, they said, "Listen, let's go kill him exactly the way we killed him last time." And
It's just like when you know that heaven has a sense of humor.
Please, what's my greatest phrase? Hey, everybody. If it ain't funny, it ain't spiritual.
Right.
And if you want to talk to me about God and you're not making me laugh, you can keep that crap to yourself. I don't need to hear it. And listen, let me tell you the Adam and Eve story since you want to really have some fun.
That was hilarious. That was so funny. So what were some of the things, or maybe the main thing that you just didn't concern yourself with, or just wasn't that important after you came back, that you realized after experiencing that,
Well,
there is no death?
that blows away. That's done. It's realizing that you're a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. And you earned a right to come here to practice. Maybe you mess up, okay. You know, because I messed up the first 25 years. But maybe you messed up, but yet you're there trying to become what you had learned, trying to put it into practice to become it, to be a greater, more powerful, loving spiritual being.
Right.
Okay, and once you identify yourself as that, okay, instead of original sin or I'm gonna burn in hell, and I didn't give a, none of that meant anything. So I had to go figure out where hell was, right? So when you're lying in a bed for 2 years, you gotta find something to do, and Price is Right was not exciting to me, you know, in days of our lives. So I would read. So I looked to find out about hell. It's mentioned 8 times in the Bible. Most of those 8 times it's describing a trash dump outside of Gethsemane where they would burn the criminals. They would crucify them and then they'd throw them in the trash and burn them because Jews put all the trash in one place, you know, and that, and this is where it was. Then in Revelations, it's all about this thing that Satan or Lucifer or the devil or demons, the morning star. The first thing when I heard about the devil was I knew that fool had been in the witness protection program. Look how many names he's got.
That's really funny.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, I mean, you know, which one of them? So hell is this, and it came into reality around 1315 because I think it was Pope Pius II. I'm not sure, but he read Dantes Inferno. And since Gutenberg had come into existence, you could print. And he read Dantes Inferno, and if you listen to any fundamentalist minister today and you read Dantes Inferno, it's almost the exact same verbiage, the ripping of the flesh, the burning, the torture. It's Dantes Inferno, so none of that's ever happened to me.
Would you describe, though, what happened to you in your first near-death experience when you, in your book, you talk about how you had to feel everybody that you had hurt?
That's going to be the punchline.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, don't.
So ask me another question.
Okay, why do people suffer?
Because they choose to be able to take on that suffering so they can practice the skill set. You know, a lot of us bite off a little more than we can chew. But you want to pick the toughest situation. I got some fixation about getting up from the dead. I don't know where I get that fixation. I should have never read that part about Jesus, you know? Okay, so, and I think maybe that I keep dying and going over there because I'm still looking for that street paved in gold.
That's very funny.
But I realize that in your spiritual outfit, you got no pockets.
Right. You can't take anything. Well, tell us a little bit about the what is it called? The Twilight Brigade and what that does, because I think that's wonderful.
Well, now I'll give you the punchline.
Oh, okay.
Here's what happens. Here's what happens. Everybody will see their entire life pass before them in a 360-degree panorama. You will have missed nothing. You know how many hairs is in the nose of the doctor who pulled you from your mother. You know how many strands of hair the fool had.
Wow.
You know every bottle, every room, every name, everything into place because you're no longer trapped in the lesson, the structural lesson dynamic that you chose to learn your lesson. You're done with it. Okay? You see your whole life pass before you. You see everything, but you also see why you see it. It's never what you do, it's why you do it. Because intention becomes the power and then motive. People can reverse those two, but most people think motive is something criminal. Forget all that. Motive is a beautiful word when you look it up in the dictionary. You know, if you read my books, I say something and I write the definition out of the dictionary. I don't leave it to you to come up with what the definition is. Okay? Because when I argue my points about people dealing with end-of-life care, then I can't be fooling around. I have to know the definition of the word to build confidence in them. So when you see your whole life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama and you realize you'd missed nothing, a sense of pride wells over you. Then you will watch your life from a second person point of view as if you were your own best friend. Hey, wow, Dan, you did really great. Holy mackerel, fool, what were you thinking? And you get to watch it from as if you were your best friend, you know? And then you literally become every person that you ever encounter.
Wow.
And you feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person.
Wow.
It's all based on the reason why. No one gets away with anything. Okay? That's not fair and just. The worst thing about us, because we use Hammurabi's code, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth,
Right.
then we use eternal damnation. You know, well, let me ask you something. From a religious point of view, if you're going to be eternally damned and you're going to be dead, who gives a shit?
That's what I
Remember that quote. That's a good one.
I mean,
It's
if
so
I'm going to be
true.
eternally damned, well, so what?
Right, exactly. That's so
Okay,
true.
who cares? Excuse my French, but I don't care.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Kill me? Okay, when you become every person that you ever encounter, well, I became people think I'm a wonderful person, but it's because I'm a smart person. I got tired of hitting my own self in the face. Okay? And what the universe searches for is harmony and balance. It's not looking for justice and fairness, because too many people design too many structural psychological dynamics to practice being a co-creator. Whatever that art form is, farming, knitting, wherever I create something, having children, we are not only godlike, we are capable of reproducing. We can create life. Think about that as a place to come to sense the godly power that you possess, and you have a right to raise that child or do to that, you know, that whole place. And we're trying to create a world where people understand that they understand it. But once you become every person that you've ever encountered, and you feel the direct results of your interaction, here's my point, the meaning of life. If God could not come today and God sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did God make? That is all anybody has to know. I became a hospice volunteer because no matter what was going on in my world, as infamous Dannion or famous Dannion or prick Dannion, whichever one you happen to encounter that day, I wanted to be a hospice volunteer because I knew what was next. And I could be at the bedside of guys going that way, and I was a Marine. So I picked the veterans. I built the Twilight Brigade, which is one of the largest end-of-life care volunteer programs for dying veterans in the history of the United States. And I train people so that they can help those who they love or someone who loves them, or they can help someone they never met that kept this country free.
Yeah.
So I've been a hospice volunteer for 38 years.
Wow.
I have more than 32,000 hours at the bedside. I've been with 2,008 people going from this world to the next. And I've been with 341 taking their last breath. There is nothing about this process I don't know. Nothing. And do I see dead people? Sure. I got more dead friends than I have living friends. Because it's like my father said, he said, you know, everybody's going to like you, Dan, till they get to know you.
What a sweet man.
Oh, he's the greatest. He's like me, just told the truth. But over there, they see how cool I am.
Yeah.
And I have no problems living between those two worlds.
Yeah.
It's not a great distance for me to be in communication a lot of times, or to be able to access people based on the intention. If someone has a certain intention and they need to communicate, I can listen to the tone in their voice, or I can hold them. I can listen to a tone in their voice, and I can harmonize the mantra. Every voice has a tone. And I can harmonize. Then I can get to the Akashic record. Then I got details. I developed the skill set because when a person's passing, I don't have time to listen to how they got their world so screwed up. I have to be able to access the information in the record so I can bring about conversation that allows them to talk themselves through it. Because when you hear yourself, you can find resolution.
Yeah.
So I have no problems about any of that. None of that troubles me. I always like to pick a fight about whether I can read your mind or not.
Right.
Because then those are the kind of things that gets people all fired up and gets them to acting a little crazy, and they usually bet a little more money than they normally would, and I always win.
I'm sure you do. Well, wow, this has been just so inspiring.
Because
I could listen to you for hours.
I know, and unfortunately our time is up, but why don't you give people your website so they can look?
It's the Twilight Brigade. Just go to the Twilight Brigade, or go to Dannion in Catherine. I mean, what we're trying to do, everybody, is if you look at the population, that 10,000 of us turn 65 every day.
Yeah.
There's 81 million of us born between 1940 and 1967, and we are in transition.
Yeah.
And we're losing the last of our parents. What has to have is there has to be a viable conversation that's created among husbands and wives and family members so that they can plan, assess, deal with the fact that we will lose most of our parents, our aunts, our uncles, our brothers and sisters, and some of our very best friends. We must be prepared. And we must be prepared with like this show so that people come in place. And where Kat and I, she's had 2 near-death experiences. They're not like mine. But I go into automatic when it's dealing. I'm a combat. I deal with the issues. I'm not overly empathetic. Well, she's overly empathetic.
Yeah.
And so the conversation and dialogue that we put on in Dannion and Catherine is the ability that the guy has a voice, the female has a voice.
Yeah.
They get to watching us interact over conversations and things, and her viewpoints are more loving.
Yeah.
Mine gets the job done.
Right.
I'm trying to get the fool down the tunnel.
Well, it sounds like it's a really nice balance between the two of you.
Oh, I mean, if there is a God, all I have to do
And there is,
all I have to do is wake up in the morning and look at her in the bed of sleep and can't wait for her to wake up to see what she's got on her mind today.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, thank you so much for being with us
Well, thank
today.
you for having
It
me.
was a
And
pleasure.
I would like
True
to
pleasure.
and I would like to thank the enormously funny and wonderful Tony Sweet.
Yes, yes, owner of the station. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
All right.
So was
thanks.
that any good?
That was.
You've been listening to Ask Me Anything, featuring spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.